Hello, and welcome to Productivity for Solopreneurs, where each week I share on a topic about insights to getting things done. And today is live 100, so yay! I'm surprised and excited that I have reached this milestone. So in celebration, I'm doing a Q&A, so question and answer, or you might call it an AMA, and Ask Me Anything. And I have a couple of questions that I will get to in just a moment. But in the meantime, let me know you're here, whether you're watching the recording or you're watching live. Say hello in the comments. And let me know if you have any questions. So if you're watching the recording and you have some questions, ask them and I will respond to you in the comments and get your question answered. Or maybe I'll do another Q&A if I get enough questions. Maybe I'll do another one later. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Evie Burke, and I help women entrepreneurs who want to take their productivity to a new level. And I do that by helping them create boundaries in their life and their business that allow them to go from overwhelmed to confident and present. So, you might call me a productivity strategist. So, through my creative and impactful solutions, we focus on getting the high priority areas completed so they can be the high achievers that they strive and they want to be. So, like I said, this week I am answering your questions, and I have a couple to start with. So, again, if you are watching and you have questions, whether they're around productivity or business or just things you want to know about me, ask them in the comments, and I will come back and I will answer them. So one of the questions I have says, and I'm going to keep all of these anonymous because no one asked to be identified. So the question is, I recently started my business and I'm overwhelmed with how much there is to do. Some days I have no idea where to start and I never feel like I'm making any progress. How do I manage everything without going crazy and start to make progress? So, first of all, I want to say congratulations for taking the leap to being an entrepreneur. I'm not sure how long you've been um, in business. I think you're under a year, but I'm not completely sure. And you are, as frustrating as it might seem, you are exactly where you need to be. Everybody goes through this at different times in their business, and it's not going to be just, your first year in business that you're feeling this overwhelm and frustration. I don't say that to be like discouraging, but just to let you know that this is part of being in business. So as you figure out this part of business, you'll be less overwhelmed, less feeling like, there's so much to do. But then you'll get to a different place in business where you're going to be growing and you're going to be back here. And that's okay. All right? Because when you find yourself back here, you can go, okay, I remember what this felt like. How do I grow into this new place that I'm at? Okay? So when you're feeling like there's so much to do and there's so much to learn and you're not sure how to start making progress or feeling like you're making progress, one of the things I want you to do is think about where can you cut back on getting information? Because I know sometimes, especially when we're starting a business or we're looking at like the next step of our business, we start to take in all of this information that we think we might need. And all that does is gives us like half a dozen or more different avenues to go down. And that can be really overwhelming because we can't go down 6 roads at the same time, right? So this is really where, the saying, to pick your lane, this is really where that can be helpful, where you can decide, okay, this is the way I'm going to do this right now. And I'm going to follow this teacher, this piece of advice, this book, this marketing coach or this marketing expert, and I'm going to try it their way with my own twist on it. Always do your own twist on it, but I'm going to do it this way, and I'm going to let all of the other ways to do it go for right now. All right? And what you'll find as you start to do this is you'll start to notice, oh, you know what? That way doesn't really work for me. So I need to, approach my marketing this way. You'll find there are so many different ways to have a business, to perform a service, to find new clients. The thing you need to do is figure out what is your way going to be. And especially if you're new in business, it's going to be through meeting people. And it's going to be from making those connections, unless you're putting a lot of money in like Facebook ads and things like that, which the way I would recommend is, don't do that, especially if you're new in business, because you're still figuring out like what does your marketing need to be? What do your clients, your ideal clients, you're just still figuring out like who your ideal clients are. So you need time to work with them and to get the language that they use down so you can write those marketing messages that are impactful on social media. But in the meantime, you need to be having conversations with people, right? So that you're meeting people and you're hearing what that language is and you're noticing what that is. And without knowing exactly what your business is or diving into that, the way that you do that is really different depending on what your business is. So as a coach, some of the ways you can do that is offering free sessions, right? And making sure that you have systems and things in place, not like super elaborate ones, because that can really be, especially when you're starting, where you get hung up is trying to have like all of these like detailed systems in place before you even have a client, when really what you need to do is work with a few somebodies, and then you can work on getting the systems as you're working with them. I know I did it the other way, where it's like, I'm going to get all of these systems in place because, somebody told me that, the universe will like systems and likes you having those plans, which might be absolutely true, but those systems sat there unused because I created them and I had spent all this time creating them, but I hadn't spent time working on how do I connect with the people I want to work with. So my time would have been better spent doing that, so I could have started making money faster than working on getting all this behind the scenes and these systems things done. All right, so if anybody has any questions regarding that, ask them. I'll cover any follow-up questions anybody has at the end, or I'll write them in the comments if you are asking them later. All right, so the second question I have is, when you're tired and don't want to do anything, how do you get the motivation to get the things done that you need to do? I think it doesn't matter where you are in business, or even if you work for someone else, I think everybody has this sometimes. And there's a couple of like quick things that you can try to do, and one of those is just get up and away from your desk sometimes. Go for a walk, do some jumping jacks, something that's going to help you be active so you can get that blood flowing. Make sure you're drinking enough water, go and have a glass of water and bring a glass back to your desk so you have that. And you might be sleep deprived. You might need a nap. So maybe you set your alarm or your timer for 45 minutes and you go and you pop it, you get a little nap in, because you'll get more done if you take that 45 minutes to an hour to have that quick nap and then come back and work, right? Versus you try to do 3 hours of work and you get through, something that maybe should have taken you 45 minutes. Better take the nap. And I know sometimes if I have had a couple of late nights or early mornings, or just I haven't gotten enough sleep, if I don't have any AM meetings, I might allow myself to sleep in a little bit. And I just know that hour later that I might be getting into my office is okay, because I'm going to get more done that day. I'm going to have more attention because I've gotten enough sleep, and more focus for the things that I'm working on. Now, the second level to this is to start noticing patterns. So those other things are like quick things that you can do, if it's like a one-off type of thing, but start noticing patterns. So is there a certain time of day where it's always, 3 o'clock hits and you're tired and you want a nap? Is it you get home from a networking meeting and you still have 2 hours of work you want to get done, but you are just exhausted? Is it every Wednesday morning you're just tired and you're not sure why. Notice what those patterns are. Notice what's going on that tends to lead toward those tired or those motivated feelings, right? So if there's a pattern that you can notice, then you can start to work with it. So one of the things that I've done, and it's completely self-serving, is so I have the Unnamed Productivity Club. And we do every week, we have a 2 to 3, generally 3-hour session of co-working. And I participate, I facilitate it, but I participate where we work in 25-minute sections. So everybody checks in and says what they're going to do for the next 25 minutes. And then after the 25 minutes is up, we say how we did, how far we got, if we accomplished what we wanted to, and then what we're going to do for the next 25. And then we're off and running for the next 25. And completely selfishly of me, because I'm the one in charge of these schedules, is occasionally I will schedule them for days that I know, or times that I know that I'm gonna be more likely to sit and not get anything done that afternoon because of the way that the morning is scheduled. And I can do that, right? Because it's my club. I'm doing the times, and the people in the club are still getting the co-working time because it varies from week to week when it is. But I'm setting it up so that I know that because I'm leading them, I'm going to get something done. And it's that extra push, that extra accountability to get things done. So think about where can you do something like that? Are there things that you can schedule that will help you get things done? If you know that 3 p.m. every day is where you tend to have a slump, maybe that's when, if you have a dog, maybe that's when you take the dog for a walk around the neighborhood, right? Or maybe that those late times, the times when you're doing, some of that busy work, that stuff that doesn't take a lot of energy or a significant amount of attention, where you can kind of just plow through some of that stuff and get it done. All right. And then another thing to think about here is accountability something that you would benefit from? Is it something where if you know that somebody's going to ask you at the end of the week, hey, you said this was really important, did you get that done? If that's going to help you, then find a way to do that. The Unnamed Accountability Program Club, I'm butchering the name, the Unnamed Productivity Club, there we go, is open for new members right now. It's $5 for the first 30 days, so you can try it out, decide if it's a good fit for you. We have accountability there. We have planning meetings there, planning parties there at the end of every month where we plan out the next month. And it's a community, right? And we have the co-working too. So it's a community where you don't have to feel so alone in getting some of the things done you need to get done. And it also gives you some of that accountability. When we have the co-working, it gives you that opportunity to just, okay, what are the things that need to get done this week that I'm avoiding? And it just gives you that extra push to be like, okay, this is what I'm getting done, right? So come and check that out. I'll pop that link down here. And yeah, just check it out at the end. On the 30th, after the 30th, it will go back to just being $47 a month, so you can still join. But if you join, before the end of the month, then, or before the 31st, then you can try it out for 30 days for $5 and see if it's a good fit for you. And the other thing I have for you here is to know your plan. Know what your goals are, know what you're working toward, because sometimes just having that little oh, if I want to meet XYZ goal or have this done by the end of the week, so I'm on track for getting whatever I wanted to accomplish this month done, then sometimes that can just be like that little extra oomph to move you forward and get things done. And again, the Unnamed Productivity Club is a place where you can have that meeting with yourself and with me, where I walk everybody as a group through planning the month or the quarter, depending on where we are. So check that out, but really look for patterns. if there's any pattern to where you're feeling unmotivated and tired, that can be really helpful. All right, and the last question I have, so again, if anybody has any questions, pop them in the comments and I will come back and I will answer them at the end of the live or in the comments if the live is over. So the last question here. I don't keep up with my bookkeeping and accounts very well, and now I have hours of work to do before I can turn it over to my accountant. How do I prevent this from happening next year? Yeah, 'tis the season, right? Time to get that stuff done. So if you are incorporated, that date has already passed. Maybe you have an extension filed. If you are incorporated and you haven't filed, you might want to reach out to your accountant to get an extension. But if you are a sole proprietor, I think, I'm not an accountant, so don't take anything I say, as gospel, but you might want to reach out to your accountant just to make sure you're where you need to be. But I wrote a little bit about this in my blog because this is something that I struggled with for a really long time. So I included a link to that that you should be able to see. So, excuse me. This is one of those things where I really want to, don't beat yourself up about this. I know for me, it took me a good 3 or more years to really figure out the system and the way to stay on top of it that worked for me. And I've actually been slacking off on it a little bit the last month, so I have a little bit of catch up to do, but not too much. And what really made a difference for me was recognizing oh, I'm seeing people, just a minute. Trying to see where these comments are coming from that I'm not seeing. But anyway, it was really a combination of figuring out what wasn't working for me and then what was working, right? So in building on what the was working part. Okay, I don't know why I wasn't seeing those comments earlier. So I'm just now seeing Rochelle commented, thank you. And I see that Barb and Heather are watching. Hello. So anyway, like I said, it was 3 years of trying to figure out what that system looked like for me. The first step was letting go of the program I was using, which was not meant to track business by any stretch of the imagination, but I already owned it and I didn't want to spend any more money. So I kept using it. And at a certain point, I just had to say, you know what? The peace of mind and the time that I'm going to save is worth that investment in the program that's meant to do this. So I talked with my accountant and she made a couple of suggestions about what I might want to look at, and I did some research and I picked one and I moved forward with it. And then the next step was getting everything up to date and asking my accountant questions when I had questions about how should this be categorized, or how should I handle this, or what do I do in this situation, and kind of taking some notes about it. So then when I was going forward throughout the year, I knew how to categorize different things in the way that my accountant wanted me to, so I could do that without paying somebody else to do it. And step by step, I figured out what it was that worked for me. And I started writing down, okay, these are the things that need to be done for me to be like up to date on my bookkeeping. And having those steps laid out was really helpful, because then I didn't feel like, okay, I need an hour once a week or 2 or 3 hours once a month to sit down and catch up on all my bookkeeping. I could say, okay, today I'm going to update the entries in my checking account in my bookkeeping software so that they're all up to date and everything's categorized. And then a couple of days later, I might, or the next week I might say, okay, well, today I'm going to update this credit card. And maybe the next week I would say, okay, I'm going to enter in the receipts where I paid cash, or I forgot my business credit card, and so I put it on my personal credit card and I want to be reimbursed for that. Where I would go through and do things. I use MileIQ to track my mileage. So it's like, okay, today I'm going to go through MileIQ and categorize the drives that I've done so that I have that all ready for the accountant, and it's fresh in my mind because it's only been a week or two since I've gone these places, so I know what needs to be categorized where without spending a lot of time going back and looking at my calendar. And it took time, but I figured out kind of what worked for me. And I also want to say that if you don't have the time to do that, and you have the money, then it might just be worth your time to find a bookkeeper and hire the bookkeeper so that you don't have to spend the time and frustration to figure it all out, because the bookkeeper is. Still pay attention to what you're earning and what your expenses are so that you know when you need to be making more money or when you maybe are spending more money than you need to in your business, or is healthy for your business for where you are. Make sure you know what those things are and maybe have that check-in with your bookkeeper, once a month so that it is top of mind. But sometimes it's better to hire somebody else. But if you're not in a position to do that, then be gentle with yourself and figure out what works, because it'll take a little bit of time, but it is doable. And you want to look at that mindset too, because if you're looking at your bookkeeping and categorizing all that and you're like, oh, it's so much work and it's going to take forever, well, then of course you're not going to want to do it. And of course you're going to drag your feet. And of course you're going to spend a bunch of time checking social media in between the other things, and it is going to take a long time. Versus if you go, you know what, I have 20 minutes, I'm going to see what I can get done, and you set the timer and you work on it, and you have kind of that attitude of, this is fine, this is just something that I do, then it brings a whole different feel to what you're doing. Okay, so this is a little bit of a long one. Thank you, Jeff, for the congratulations. I don't think I see any comments. I'll go through and I'll check again later to see if there's any other ones that I missed. I don't think there are. But if anybody else has any questions that they would like answered, pop them in the comments, and I will either answer them in the comments or maybe I'll do another Q&A if I get enough questions. But I just hope everybody has a really great week. Again, the Unnamed Productivity Club is open for new members, and one of the perks of being a member of the Unnamed Productivity Club is, while you don't have one-on-one time with me, you do have an opportunity to ask me questions or ask the group questions every single week. So it's a way to ask some of these types of questions or other questions and get them answered and be supported without needing, or when you don't need, the one-on-one attention of working with me or working with a coach, but you can get that pop-in attention when you need it. So check out the club if that's something that you think would benefit you. I would love to welcome you into it. And until next week, much love. Bye, everybody.